If you're listening late at night, you might want to stay until the end. Something happened to me, and to this day I can't understand it. My name is Rodrigo. I work as a night security inspector at Ocean Majesty, a luxury cruise ship that sails the Miami Caribbean route. 5 years in this routine. 5 years walking the same corridors, checking the same areas, hearing the same sound of the ocean crashing against the steel hull. I used to find my job boring, safe, predictable, until that night in March. It was around 2:30 in the morning. The ship was 2 days away from Nassau. The fog was dense, the kind that swallows the moon and transforms the sea into an endless gray wall. I was on deck 12, the outer section, doing my usual rounds. Most of the passengers were already asleep. Only the wind and the creaking of metal accompanied me. I saw it from afar, near the parapet, on the left side, close to the smoking area. A pair of shoes, women's shoes. Black pumps, medium heel, placed side by side, organized, as if someone had calmly taken them out and simply walked away. My stomach turned to ice. I quickened my pace. The fog made it difficult to see, but as I got closer, I saw more. A small bag made of brown leather. A cell phone, screen facing upwards, unlocked with the battery almost dead. Documents, US passport, boarding pass. Everything's there, tidy, waiting, but nobody was around. I looked around. Absolute silence. The wind pushed the fog like ghosts dragging themselves across the deck. I called out, "Hello? Anyone here?" Nothing. My heart raced. I ran to the railing and looked down. Only ocean, liquid darkness, waves crashing against the hull 20 meters below. I picked up the radio. "Central, this is Rodrigo, deck 12, outside sector. I have a situation. Personal belongings abandoned near the railing. No one is present. I request a man overboard protocol." The response took a long time. A very long time. When he arrived, Supervisor Anderson's voice was cold, calculated. "Rodrigo, hold your position. Do not activate the alarm. I repeat, do not activate the alarm. Await instructions." I stood there, holding the radio, feeling the icy wind pierce through my jacket. Something was wrong. Very wrong. I looked at the shoes again. They seemed to be watching me. 15 minutes have passed. I remained there, alone on deck 12, staring at those objects as if they were a bomb about to explode. The wind cut my face. The fog seemed denser, heavier. The radio finally crackled. "Rodrigo, this is Anderson." "Yes, sir. I'm waiting." "What do we do?" Silence for 3 seconds. Then, "Collect all items. Take them to Warehouse B, lost and found. Seal everything. Do not register it in the system yet. We will await official confirmation in the morning." I blinked, confused. "Sir, that's not protocol. If there's a suspicion of a man overboard, we should—" "Rodrigo." His voice grew colder. "How long have you worked here?" 5 years. "So you know I don't repeat orders. Collection, deposit B. No registration, no alarm. We'll deal with it tomorrow." My stomach churned. "Understood." The radio switched off with a dry click. I stood there for another minute, just breathing. I felt something strange, like I was being watched. I turned my head slowly, looking at the security cameras on the ceiling. The lens was pointed the other way. He always pointed to that area, always. But now, no. I swallowed hard. I grabbed a plastic bag from my backpack and started collecting the items, one by one. The shoes were cold to the touch, as if they had been there for hours. The purse was open. Inside, lipstick, tissues, a wallet with money, credit cards. I picked up my phone. The screen was still lit. I opened the last thing I'd viewed. A text message, not sent, just typed. "I can't anymore." I felt a shiver run down my spine. I put everything away. I sealed the bag. I went down to storage room B, 3 floors below, down a narrow, dimly lit corridor where passengers leave behind items. I placed the bag on a metal shelf at the back. I locked the door. I went back to my patrol, but I couldn't stop thinking. Why didn't we trigger the alarm? Why did Anderson act that way? What if she was still alive, clinging to something, waiting to be rescued? At 5:47 a.m., when my shift ended, I returned to Warehouse B. The bag was no longer there. I searched for 15 minutes. I rummaged through shelves. I opened boxes. Nothing. Someone had taken it. And nobody. He never mentioned it again. In the following days, I waited. I waited for an internal announcement, an email, a security meeting, something. Nothing came. The cruise continued its route as normal. Nassau, Cozumel, back to Miami. Passengers embarked, disembarked, laughter in the hallways, music on the pool deck, cocktail at sunset. Everything is perfectly normal, except that I couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw those shoes, side by side, neatly arranged, waiting. On the fourth day, I looked for Marcus, another security inspector. We used to have coffee together before our shift. He was the type to talk too much. He knew everything that was going on the ship. "Marcus, did you hear about any incident on Deck 12 last week?" He stopped stirring the sugar in his coffee. He looked at me over the top of his cup. "What type of incident?" "I don't know. Something out of the ordinary." He shrugged. "Nothing that I know of. Why?" "Just curious." He narrowed his eyes. Then he went back to stirring his coffee. "Rodrigo, are you okay?" "Yes, I am." Saves. I tried to access the incident log system that afternoon. Login, password, everything correct. I searched by date. Nothing, no report, no incident recorded. It was as if that night had never happened. I began to question my own memory. Had I imagined it? Had the fatigue, the fog, the solitude of the night shift made me see things? But I remembered the weight of the shoes in my hand, the coldness of the leather, the message on my cell phone. I can't anymore. That was real. The nightmares started in the second week, always the same. I was on Deck 12, alone, and I could hear footsteps behind me, barefoot footsteps, wet. When I turned around, I saw a female silhouette standing by the railing, her back to me, long hair swaying in the wind. She never turned her face away. It just stayed there, waiting. He would wake up sweating, his heart pounding in his chest. And during the day, on the ship, I began to feel it. A presence. Especially at night, when I passed by Deck 12. The air always got colder at that exact spot. Always. And I swore that sometimes I could hear breathing, low, suffocated. But when I looked around, there was no one there. I looked for Anderson once. He was in the security office reviewing cameras. "Sir, about that night." He didn't even look up from the screen. "What a night, Rodrigo. Deck 12, the belongings." He paused the video. He stared at me. His face was a mask. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sir, I called on the radio. You gave me orders." "Rodrigo." He stood up. "You're tired. You work too much. Maybe you need to take a few days off." My blood ran cold. I didn't imagine that. No one said you imagined it, but no one recorded anything either, so it didn't happen. He dismissed me with a gesture. I left there trembling. They were erasing everything, and I had helped. 3 months later, I was in Miami, a day off between cruises. I went to a bar near the port, a small, somewhat hidden place where the crew usually goes when they disembark. Cheap beer, low music, nobody bothers you. I needed this. Silence. Distance from the ship. I was on my second beer when I recognized the man at the bar. Thomas, former deck supervisor. Worked in Ocean Majesty. He worked for almost 10 years. He left 6 months ago. Nobody really knew why. He simply resigned and disappeared. He saw me too. He nodded. He came and sat next to me. Rodrigo, right? Yes. Thomas, right? That's it. Long time no see, man. We chatted about pleasantries for a few minutes. The weather, work, life on land. He seemed different, lighter, as if he had dropped a weight. Then he asked, "Are you still in Majesty?" "I am. 5 years already." He gave a bitter smile. 5 years is enough time to see shit happen. My stomach tightened. "What are you talking about?" Thomas took a long sip of his beer. He looked around. He lowered his voice. "Have you ever seen anything strange? Like things disappearing from the records? Orders that don't make sense?" My heart raced. "Why are you asking that?" He stared at me. His eyes were tired, too old for his age. "Because I know what it's like. I've been through it, more than once." I took a deep breath. Deck 12. March. Belongings near the railing. Shoes, purse, cell phone. I reported it. They told me to pick it up and keep quiet. The next day, everything was gone. No record. Nothing. Thomas nodded slowly, as if he already knew. Helena Cardoso. I froze. What? That was her name. Helena Cardoso. 29 years old, from Boston. She boarded alone. She never disembarked. My voice came out hoarse. "How do you know?" "Because her family started looking for her. They called the company. They went to the port. They made a lot of noise, but the company said she disembarked normally in Nassau. They even showed security cameras proving it. But was it a lie?" Thomas looked deep into my eyes. "Rodrigo, how many passengers do you think disappear on cruise ships every year?" I didn't answer. "More than 20. In the United States alone, most are never found. And you know what happens in most cases? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Because suing a cruise company is expensive, complicated, and almost impossible to prove anything in international waters." He finished his beer in one gulp. "So they have a protocol. Unofficial, but everyone knows it. If something happens, you clean it up, you erase it, you move on. Because stopping a cruise ship, sounding the alarm, calling the Coast Guard, that costs millions. Headlines in the newspapers, lawsuits, so it's easier to forget about it." I felt nausea rising in my throat. I helped cover it up. Thomas put his hand on my shoulder. "You had no choice. None of us do. I could have triggered the alarm. And he'd be fired on the spot. Maybe sued for negligence. They do that. I've seen it happen." I remained silent. My hands were trembling. Thomas stood up. He left a $20 note on the counter. "That's why I left, Rodrigo. I couldn't sleep anymore." He started to leave. He stopped at the door. He looked back. "Just one more thing. Helena wasn't the first, and she won't be the last." Then he left, and I stayed there, alone, burdened by the weight of a secret that was crushing me. I still work at Ocean Majesty. It's been 8 months since that night. 8 months since I found Helena Cardoso's shoes. I thought about leaving. I seriously considered it. I even wrote my resignation letter 3 times. But I never sent it. Because I need the money. Because I have bills to pay. Because getting another job isn't easy when you're 34 years old, and the only thing you know how to do is walk in circles on a ship. So I continue. Every shift, same round, same corridors, same endless ocean crashing against the hull. But now it's different. Every night when I pass by Deck 12, I feel it. The air gets cold at that exact spot, always, even when it's hot, even when there's no wind. I hear footsteps, barefoot, wet, dragging on the metal. I look back, nobody there. Sometimes, I swear I see a shadow, quick, in the corner of my vision, a female silhouette standing by the parapet. When I turn around completely, she's no longer there. But I know. You be where she is. The other inspectors feel nothing. Marcus walks by, humming. Anderson searches the area with his usual coldness. Just me. Because I was the only one who was there that night. The only one who held her shoes. The only one who read the message on her cell phone. I can't anymore. She was asking for help, and I cleaned up the scene. I erased the evidence. I followed orders. 2 weeks ago, something happened that made me certain I'm losing my mind, or that something much worse is happening. It was 3:12 a.m., deck 12, the same time I found her. I was finishing my patrol when I saw it. On the other side of the deck, next to the parapet, a pair of shoes, black pumps, medium heel, side by side. My heart stopped. I ran over there. My hands were trembling. My breathing was erratic. When I got closer, there was nothing. Only the wind and the ocean. I fell to my knees. I covered my face with my hands. I no longer know what is real. I don't know if I'm going crazy or if Helena is trying to tell me something. Maybe she wants me to tell the truth, to expose what they did to her. But who will believe me? There's no proof. There are no records. There's no body. My word alone against the institutional silence of a multi-million-dollar company. And even if someone believed it, what would that change? Helena would still be dead. And I would still be an accomplice. Last night, I passed by deck 12 again. I was alone. Dense fog, rough seas. I stopped at the parapet. I looked down. And for the first time, I understood what she must have felt. The weight, the loneliness, the despair of being in a place where nobody sees you, nobody hears you, nobody cares. I stayed there for a long time, just breathing, feeling the icy wind cut my face. Then I heard it, very quietly, right next to me. A voice, female, whispering, "Thank you." I turned my head slowly. There was nobody there, but the air was freezing, and for the first time in months, I felt peace. Maybe she just needed someone to know, someone to remember, someone to carry the weight with her. Now I carry it, and I will carry on until the end. I told this story because I need someone to know. Because if something happens to me, if I disappear too, at least this will be recorded. Helena Cardoso existed. She was in Ocean Majesty in March 2025, and she never disembarked. If you're listening to this, know that there are places where nobody should be alone, and I spent 6 nights in a row in one of them. My name doesn't matter. What matters is that for 4 years I worked as a security guard on board the Celestial Voyager. It was a luxury cruise ship that sailed the Miami Caribbean route. 16 decks, 3,000 passengers, a crew of 900. I knew every corridor, every camera, every access protocol. I was methodical. I had to be. Before that, I spent 6 years in the Navy. I learned that discipline saves lives. I learned that when something is out of place, you don't ignore it. But I also learned that sometimes orders come from above, and you obey, even when you shouldn't. It all started on a Tuesday, during my shift from 11 at night to 6 in the morning. I was alone in the monitoring room on Deck B, watching 17 screens at the same time. Most showed empty corridors, deserted staircases, locked rooms, passengers sleeping, crew resting. Only the constant hum of the air conditioning and the dull rumble of the engines kept me company. Then I saw Screen 9, restricted corridor of Deck C, technical sector, exclusive access for engineering and supervision, a quick movement, someone passing by, but always on the edge of the frame, as if they knew exactly where the camera couldn't reach. I rewound it. I watched it again and again. It wasn't a reflection. It wasn't a shadow. It was a person, walking slowly, methodically, disappearing into the blind spot just before the door to the engine room. I checked the access log in the system. No one had swiped a card in that area in the last 4 hours, but someone was there. I called the supervisor. The night manager's voice, Peterson, sounded tired on the other end. "It must be a recording delay. You know how old these cameras are." "Sir, it's not a delay. I saw live movement." "Did any alarms go off?" "No." "Then record it in the report and continue the patrol." I turned it off. I stared at screen 9, the empty hallway. Cold, white fluorescent light. Metal walls painted in industrial gray. Silence. But I knew. Something, or someone, had been there. The following night it happened again. Screen 9. Same time. 3:47 in the morning. Quick movement. Always escaping the main angle. Always disappearing before I could see the face, or the uniform, or anything. This time I didn't call anyone. I grabbed the flashlight, the radio, and went down to Deck C alone. The hallway was freezing, colder than usual. My breath came out in small clouds of steam. The lights flickered slightly, as if the voltage were unstable. My footsteps echoed off the metal, every sound amplified, every silence heavy. And then I saw the door to the electrical control room. Locked with a magnetic code, sealed off 2 months ago for preventative maintenance. It was open, not broken into. Open, inside. I stood there, staring at that half-open door. The red light of the card reader blinked slowly, like a lazy heartbeat. Absolute silence, only the distant hum of the motors vibrating against the walls. I pushed the door open with my fingertips. It opened without resistance, a metallic creak cutting through the air. The smell hit me immediately. Machine oil, mixed with something damp. Mold, perhaps, or condensed sea air. The room was dark except for the green emergency light in the corner. Electrical panels were covered in dust. Wires were exposed. Tools lay abandoned on a workbench. Everything was exactly as it should be, except for one thing. Footprints. On the dusty floor, recent boot sole prints. Large size. Military standard, like ours. They ran in a straight line to the back of the room and then disappeared. As if whoever was there had simply ceased to exist. I felt a chill run down the back of my neck. It wasn't fear, not yet. It was the unsettling feeling that something wasn't right. Someone had gotten in. But how? And why? I pulled out the radio. "Base, this is Security 4. I have a sealed door open on Deck C, the technical area. I request verification of access logs." The static crackled. Then the operator's sleepy voice. "Received 4. 1 moment." I waited. 15 seconds. 30. My breath echoing in the silence. The green light of the room blinking. Slow. Hypnotic. 4. There is no record of access to this area in the last 72 hours. The last entry was for external maintenance last Tuesday. So how come the door is open? Silence on the other end. Then, "You will verify this with supervision. Continue the round." I turned off the radio. I grabbed my cell phone and took pictures of the footprints. Then I went back to the hallway and locked the door manually, using my master key. I felt the heavy click of the magnetic lock activating again. But as I walked away, I couldn't help but look back, just once. The reader's red light continued to blink. Normal. But I swore I heard something. A slow, dragging sound, like someone moving their feet on the metal floor, coming from inside the room. I went back to the monitoring center and logged everything in the system. Door open. Recent footprints. No signs of forced entry. Possible malfunction of the magnetic seal. Peterson called me 20 minutes later. "I received your report." "Yes, sir. I want engineering to check that room tomorrow morning. Someone was there. Did you see anyone? No, but... So there was nobody there. Silence. Sir, with all due respect, someone opened that door from the inside. The footprints, they might be old. Dust moves with ventilation. You know that. I clenched my teeth. I felt the old reflex rising. The urge to insist, to push, to not let it pass. But I also felt that familiar feeling, the same one from 3 years ago, when I reported irregularities at my previous post, when I was ignored, then transferred, then forgotten. Understood, sir. Great. Continue the patrol. And Matthias? He never used my name. Try. If there is no confrontation, there is no incident. Keep that in mind. The call dropped. I stared at the screens. 17 empty corridors, 17 blind spots, 17 places where something could be, and I would never know. I grabbed my now cold coffee and went back to my chair, but I couldn't stop staring at screen 9. 3:47 in the morning, the corridor of Deck C empty. But this time, I felt it. Someone was watching me back. I spent the rest of that night with my eyes glued to screen 9. Nothing. No movement. No shadows. Just that empty, motionless corridor, lit by lights that flickered occasionally, as if they were tired. But I knew. Felt something was wrong. When my shift ended at 6 in the morning, the sun was already rising over the ocean. Passengers were beginning to move around. Crew members were taking their posts. The ship was coming back to life. Noise, people, normalcy. I went straight to the dorm, but I couldn't sleep. I stared at the low metal ceiling, listening to the creaking of the bunk above, trying to understand. Recent footprints, door open from the inside, system with no access log, and that order. If there is no confrontation, there is no incident. What was Peterson actually telling me? The following night I arrived early. I stopped by the administration office before my shift and asked to access the complete security logs from the previous week. The receptionist, a middle-aged woman named Carla, looked at me suspiciously. You need authorization from your supervisor for that. This is for yesterday's report. Door open on Deck C. She typed something on the computer. She frowned. There's nothing here about an open door. What do you mean? I registered yesterday at 4 in the morning. So it was deleted, or it was never sent. The system doesn't show anything. I felt my stomach tighten. Can you check again? She sighed, but checked. She shook her head. Nothing. Sorry. I left there with my jaw clenched. Someone had deleted my record, or they never let it go up in the system. Either way, someone didn't want it documented. My shift started at 11. I took my post in the monitoring center, alone again. Same silence, same screens. But this time I was prepared. 3:47 in the morning, like a clock. Screen 9. Movement. This time I didn't hesitate. I grabbed the flashlight, the radio, and went straight down to Deck C. My heart was racing, but my head was cool. Training, protocol. You go, check, record, report. The hallway was the same. Cold, lights flickering, oppressive silence. But something was different. 3 doors, 3 sealed doors, all open. I stopped in the middle of the hallway, feeling the cold sweat trickle down my back despite the frigid air. This wasn't a technical glitch. This wasn't an accident. Someone was opening those doors, on purpose. I approached the first one, the hydraulic maintenance room. Inside, everything was dark. A strong smell of grease. Tools hung on the walls, and on the floor. A jacket. I picked it up carefully. Crew uniform. Name embroidered on the chest, R. Sullivan. My blood ran cold. I knew that name. Robert Sullivan, assistant engineer. He worked on the ship for 2 years, until he disappeared, 3 weeks ago, during a stop in San Juan. The official version was that he had disembarked and never returned. Desertion. But his jacket was there, damp, recently worn. I pulled the radio out with a trembling hand, Base, this is Security 4. I have a situation on Deck C. 3 sealed doors are open. I found belongings of a missing crew member. I request immediate supervision. Static. Then, Peterson's voice. Colder than ever. 4. Identify the crew member. Robert Sullivan. Engineer. Missing for 3 weeks. A long, heavy silence. Leave the item where it is. Return to the center. Now. Sir, this is evidence of... Now 4. But, if there was no confrontation, don't insist. The line died. I stood there, clutching that wet jacket, feeling the weight of those words. Don't insist. Don't investigate. Don't ask. Obey. I dropped my jacket on the floor. I left the room. I locked the 3 doors manually, one by one. My hands were trembling. As I was almost at the elevator, I looked back one last time. And then I saw. At the end of the corridor. Stopped. Completely still. A silhouette. With his back to me. Wearing crew uniform. It didn't move. It didn't turn. It just stayed there. Waiting. I pressed the elevator button. The door took forever to open. I got in. I pressed it. I pressed it again. The door began to close. And in the last second before everything disappears, the silhouette turned its head. Slowly. But the door closed before I could see the face. I spent the next 3 days trying to act as if nothing had happened. I did my rounds. I logged into the system. I avoided Deck C. Peterson didn't mention the incident. Nobody did. Sullivan's jacket was gone. The doors were sealed again. And the system? The system showed nothing. No alerts. No record of unauthorized access. As if those 6 nights had never happened. I started to doubt myself. Stress, exhaustion. Night shifts do that to your head. Maybe I'd seen it wrong. Maybe the silhouette was just a shadow. Maybe... Until Friday night. 3:47 in the morning. Screen 9. The system alarm went off. Unauthorized access. Deck C, engine room. My blood ran cold. I checked the record. Card number 4728B. Used at 03:47:12. I opened the credentials database. I looked for the number. Card 4728B. Robert Sullivan. Status. Cancelled on 02/01/2026. Impossible. I called the base. Different operator this time. Young, nervous voice. Base, security level 4. We have access with a cancelled card. I need immediate confirmation. 4. What's the card number? 4728B. Robert Sullivan. Silence. Rapid typing on the other end. 4. This card is active in the system. No. It was cancelled 3 weeks ago when Sullivan disappeared. I'm looking at it here. Status. Active. Last modified. Today. 2:15 a.m. I felt the ground disappear from beneath my feet. Who made the change? No user registration. Automatic system change. The system doesn't do that on its own. I know. But that's what's here. I turned it off. I looked at screen 9. The hallway was empty. The door to the machine room was closed. But someone had swiped their card. Someone had come in. Or something. I went down. I didn't think. I just went. The hallway was different this time. Darker. The lights flickered in sequence, creating shadows that danced on the metal walls. The air was heavy, charged, like before a storm. The engine room door was ajar, and from inside came a sound. Breathing. Heavy. Damp. Slow. I pushed the door open slowly. The creaking echoed. The room was bathed in twilight, only the red emergency light illuminating the space. Enormous machines, exposed pipes, steam escaping in thin jets. And in the back, with her back to me, standing in front of the control panel, a figure, crew uniform, rigid posture, immobile. Sullivan? My voice came out weak, hesitant. The figure did not respond, but his breathing stopped. Absolute silence, and then, slowly, very slowly. She started to turn around. My whole body froze. Every muscle screamed at me to run, but my feet were glued to the ground. The head turned first, then the shoulders, and I saw... The radio on my belt exploded in static. Distorted voice, endlessly repeated numbers. 4728B, 4728B, 47... The red light flashed, then it went out. Total darkness. I ran without looking back. I ran to the elevator. I went up. I locked the door to my dorm room, and I sat on the ground, trembling, until the sun rose. When the sun rose, I was still sitting on the floor of the dormitory, my back against the door. My hands were trembling. My head was throbbing. I hadn't slept. I couldn't. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw that figure turning. Slow. Impossible. At 8 in the morning, I received an email from the administration. Immediate transfer. Effective today. New position, daytime security, Deck A, passenger area. Report to Supervisor Thompson at 2 p.m. No explanation. No justification. They just took me off the night shift. They took me off Deck C. They silenced me. I spent the next 2 weeks working during the day. Sun, people, families taking photos, children running around. Everything normal, everything safe. But at night, lying in my bunk bed, I could still hear it. The static from the radio, the heavy breathing, the repeated numbers. 4728B. I tried asking about Sullivan. Nobody knew anything, or nobody wanted to talk. Peterson avoided my gaze in the hallways. Carla from administration changed the subject whenever I showed up. It was as if those 6 nights had never happened. How I few it had never happened. Then, 3 weeks later, the ship docked in Miami for routine maintenance. End of season. Crew change. I had 15 days off. I disembarked with a backpack on my back and the feeling of running away from something I never quite managed to see clearly. I returned to my apartment in Fort Lauderdale. Small, quiet, far from the sea. I tried to get back to normal. I tried to forget. But 2 weeks later, I received an email, sender unknown. No subject, only one attachment, video archive. I hesitated. My hand hovered over the mouse. Part of me knew I shouldn't open it. I knew that some doors, once opened, never close again. But I clicked. The video loaded. Grainy image, black and white, security camera, screen 9, Deck C, date, January 9th, 2026, time, 3:47:33 a.m. My stomach churned. The empty hallway appeared on the screen, lights flickering, visual silence. And then, I entered the painting. Me, walking slowly down the hallway, alone, looking ahead. But something was wrong. I would stop in the middle of the hallway. I would stand there, completely still, for almost 2 minutes, just staring into nothingness. And then, slowly, my head turned, not to the sides, upwards, looking directly at the camera. My face in the recording, it was expressionless, empty, eyes open, mouth slightly open, as if I were absent. It's as if something is using me. The video cut off. I stared at the black screen of the laptop. My reflection stared back at me. I swore. I swore that night I was chasing someone. I saw the silhouette. I heard the breathing. But the video showed something else. It showed that Hewitt was an anomaly. It showed that was exactly what shouldn't have been there. I closed my laptop. I stood up. I went to the window. Outside, the Fort Lauderdale night shone peacefully. Cars passing by. Lights from buildings. Life as normal. But in the reflection of the glass, for a second, just a second, I saw, behind me, standing in the corner of the apartment, a silhouette. Costs. I'll turn around quickly. Nothing. Just my empty apartment. But the card I kept in my pocket last night without even realizing it. It was on the table, Card 4728B, Robert Sullivan, active. I still work in security. I haven't gone back to the sea. Now it's the day shift, a commercial building. No more old cameras or empty hallways. But every night at 3:47 in the morning, I wake up and I feel it. Someone is watching me from the corner of the room, costs, waiting, and I know, Iba, that one day I'm going to turn my head and it will be there. Something happened to me, and to this day I can't understand it. My name is Raphael, but nobody calls me that here. I'm just maintenance or the Brazilian on the night shift. I've been working for 8 months on a cruise ship that sails along the east coast of the United States, Miami, Charleston, New York, and back. Always the same circuit, always the same routes, always the same empty corridors during the early morning hours. I thought I knew every corner of that ship. I was wrong. It was a Tuesday, around 2:30 in the morning. I was in the control room on Deck 4, checking reports on water, energy, and air conditioning consumption. Technical stuff, boring stuff, the kind of work that makes you kind of automatic after a few months. Then the screen flickered. Cabin 714, Deck 7, water consumption, active. I frowned. It didn't make sense. Flight 714 had been blocked since I boarded. Structural problem in the piping, they said. It was never fixed. It was never occupied. I turned on the radio. Supervisor, this is Raphael. I'm checking water consumption in cabin 714. Silence for about 3 seconds. Then the deep voice of Martin, my supervisor, crackled on the radio. It must be a system error. Go take a look. Simple as that. No tone of worry, no urgency. I grabbed my flashlight, even though I knew I wouldn't need it. The corridors had a yellowish light, those dim ship lamps that make everything look like an abandoned hospital. I climbed the service stairs, footsteps echoing on the metal, the gentle rocking of the ocean, the constant rumble of the engines in the ship's bowels. Deck 7 was one of the quietest, luxury cabins, passengers who pay a high price to sleep away from the noise of the engines. I arrived at the 714 hallway. I stopped in front of the door. Everything seemed normal. A maintenance sign hung on the doorknob. Absolute silence. No sound of running water. No noise. I pulled the master key fob from my belt. I inserted the key into the lock. Gray. The door didn't open. I tried again. Nothing. Then I realized the lock was activated from the inside. My stomach turned to ice. Someone was inside. I stood there for a good 10 seconds, just staring at the door. The lock was engaged from the inside. That meant someone, or something, had gotten into that cabin and locked the door. But how? I had the only master key. The cabin had been locked for months. I knocked on the door. 3 firm knocks. Hello? Is anyone there? Nothing. I hit it again, harder. This is maintenance. I need to go in. Silence. But it wasn't an empty silence. It was heavy, as if someone were on the other side, holding their breath. I pulled out the radio. Martin, the door is locked from the inside. What do you mean by inside? Someone activated the lock. I can't open it. A long pause. I heard him take a deep breath on the radio. Use the emergency unlock function. I put away the radio and grabbed the tool every employee carries, a small Allen wrench that unlocks any cabin on the ship in case of emergency. Doctors use it when someone faints in their room. Security uses it when there's a domestic dispute. I had never used it before. I fitted the tool, turned it. Click, the lock gave way. I pushed the door open slowly. The air that came out was warm, damp. It smelled of soap. That cheap soap smell that the ship provides in all the bathrooms. I turned on the flashlight, even though the hallway light was illuminating part of the room. The bed was unmade. It wasn't just crumpled. It was as sheets pulled aside, pillow with a head imprint, blanket thrown on the floor. as if someone had slept there and run away. I went all the way in, closing the door behind me. On the nightstand, a half-empty water bottle. Next to it, a glass with sediment at the bottom. I touched the bottle. It was at room temperature, but condensation still marked the plastic. I went to the bathroom. The light was off, but when I touched the switch, the bulb turned on normally. The mirror was fogged up. Drops of water ran down the surface. The sink had fresh splashes. A towel hanging on the hook was still damp. I ran my hand over the towel. It was wet, not soaked, but damp enough to have been used recently. My heart started beating faster. I went back to the room. I looked at the closet. It was closed. I took a deep breath and opened it. Empty. But on the floor of the locker, there was a crumpled piece of paper. I picked it up. It was the wrapper from a cereal bar, a brand they sold in the crew mess, not in the passenger restaurants. Someone from the crew had been there. I looked at the bed again, at the bathroom, at the water bottle. Someone had slept there, taken a bath, ate, and he left. But where to? I pulled the radio out with a trembling hand. "Martin, someone is using this booth." "What?" "The bed is used. There's a wet towel. There's trash. Someone is living here." Silence on the other end. A silence that lasted far too long. Then, his voice lower. "Get out of there. Now." "But..." "Get out, lock the door, and come to the control room." I turned off the radio. I looked around one more time. I felt something. I can't explain it. As if the objects still held the warmth of those who had been there. I left. I locked the door. As I turned to leave, I looked down the hallway, and I swore I saw a shadow turning the corner. I ran down the stairs, my heart pounding. The image of that shadow turning the corner wouldn't leave my head. It could have been anything. A passenger returning late to their room, a cleaning staff member, my own paranoia, but it didn't seem like it. I arrived at the control room. Martin was standing with his back to me, looking at the monitoring screens. He didn't turn around when I entered. "Close the door," he said, without looking at me. I closed it. The click of the lock echoed in the silence. He finally turned around. Martin was about 50 years old, with gray hair and deep, dark circles under his eyes. He had worked on ships for over 20 years. He had seen it all, or at least that's what he said. "What did you see there?" he asked directly. Signs of recent occupancy, used bed, wet towel, trash. Someone was there, Martin. Someone is using that cabin. He sighed. He ran his hand over his face. "And you saw who?" "No. But I saw a shadow in the hallway when I left." He stared at me for a few seconds. Then he sat down slowly in the chair, as if he were too tired to continue standing. "Sit down," he said. I sat down. "Raphael, I'm going to tell you something, and you're going to listen carefully. What you saw, it didn't happen." I blinked. "What do you mean it didn't happen?" "I saw it, Martin. I touched things. The towel was wet, the bed, it didn't happen," he repeated more firmly. "You checked the cabin. Everything was normal. The system had a technical error. That's all. Nothing more." "Are you serious?" He leaned forward, his eyes fixed on mine. "Listen, do you know how many people travel on that ship every week? 3,000, sometimes 4,000. Do you know what happens when rumors start about people hiding on board? Panic. Passengers demand refunds. The press distorts the story. The company loses millions. But what if it's true? What if someone... It doesn't matter," he interrupted. "It's none of your business. It's none of your business. Why, we handle maintenance. We don't investigate. We don't spread rumors." I remained silent, trying to process it. "Has this happened before?" I asked. He didn't answer immediately. He looked away at the screens. "Already." "And what happened?" "Nothing. Because nobody recorded it. Because nobody spoke." I felt a weight on my chest. A dull anger began to rise. So we just ignore it? Martin looked at me again, this time with something that seemed tired or scared. You lock the door. You don't go back there. You don't talk about it with anyone on the crew. And tomorrow, when the system shows consumption again, you ignore it. Got it? I wanted to argue. I wanted to scream, but I needed that job. I needed the money. I needed to finish the contract. So I just shook my head. I understood. Great. Now go back to your shift. And forget what you saw. I left the control room with wobbly legs. I spent the rest of the night doing automatic rounds, checking water pressure, noting temperatures, trying not to think. But every time I passed near the stairs leading to Deck 7, my stomach churned. 3 nights later, the system recorded water consumption in cabin 714 again. I ignored it, as Martin instructed. But on the 4th day, something changed. Cabin 714 appeared as Bacino official reservation system. Passenger's name, Mr. Augusto Mello. I looked in the boarding log. There was no one with that name on the list. I spent 2 days trying to convince myself it was a system error. A bug. Some passenger who canceled their reservation at the last minute, and their name was mistakenly registered. But I knew it wasn't. He checked the system every shift. The name was still there. Mr. Augusto Mello. Cabin 714. Check-in confirmed. But there was no boarding record, no scanned passport, no photo in the security system, no linked credit card, no meal charged, no drinks, nothing. It was as if the name had appeared out of nowhere. On Friday night, I couldn't take it anymore. I waited until 3 in the morning, when Martin took his smoking break on the outside deck. I grabbed the master key and went upstairs. This time, my heart was beating so hard I could hear my pulse in my ears. Deck 7. Empty corridor. Yellowish light flickering at the end of the corridor, as always. I arrived at the door of 714. I stopped. I took a deep breath. The maintenance sign was no longer there. In its place, there was a small golden plaque, identical to those on the other occupied cabins, and on it was engraved, Ta. A. Mello. My hand trembled as I held the key. I knocked on the door. 3 light knocks. Hello? Maintenance. Nothing. I pressed my ear against the door. Silence. But not the silence of an empty room. It was different. Dense. As if something were absorbing the sound. I turned the key slowly. The door was not locked. I pushed. The low creak of the hinge seemed to explode in the silent hallway. I went in. The room was inhabited. Not like last time. Now it was organized. The bed was made with military precision. Towels were folded on the chair. The bag, an old brown leather bag, was leaning against the wall next to the closet. But there was still nobody there. I walked to the bed. I ran my hand over the sheet. Cold, smooth, as if it had been made hours ago. I looked at the suitcase. I hesitated. I knew I shouldn't. But my hand was already moving. I opened the zipper. Inside, folded clothes, white dress shirts, dark trousers, a pair of black shoes, well polished, all old. Not just old, but from another time. Like clothes my grandfather used to wear in the 90s. At the bottom of the suitcase, a folder of documents. I picked it up. I opened it. Inside, an old photograph. Thick, slightly yellowed photographic paper. The image showed a group of uniformed men standing in front of a ship. The uniform was from the same company. I recognized the coat of arms. But the ship in the photo wasn't ours. It was older, smaller. I looked at their faces. About 10 men, all serious, looking at the camera. And then I saw, third man from the left, angular face, deep-set eyes, dark hair combed to the side. He was identical to Martin. Not similar, identical. I turned the photo over. On the back, written in faded blue pen, Atlantic Dreamer Crew, 1993. Below, a list of names. I looked for the third one from the left. Augusto Mello, maintenance supervisor. My breath stopped. I looked at the photo again, at the face, at the name, Augusto Mello. The Martin I knew was called Martin Schultz. I had seen his name tag before. His full name was in the system, but that face. I heard a sound behind me, a low, creaking sound, as if someone had stepped on the wooden floor. I'll turn around quickly. The door was locked. I had left it open. My blood ran cold. I put the photo back in the folder back in the suitcase. I closed everything with trembling hands. I went to the door. I tried to open it. Locked. I pushed hard. Nothing. Shit. I pulled out the master key. I tried to unlock it. The lock turned, but the door wouldn't open, locked from the inside. Just like the first time. I stepped back. I looked around. The room seemed smaller. The air, heavier. And then, coming from the bathroom, I heard. The tap was turned on. Water started to flow. Water was running in the bathroom. It wasn't a strong jet. It was steady, methodical, like someone washing their hands or filling the sink. I stood frozen in the middle of the room, unable to move. My mind screamed at me to get out of there, but my body was frozen, staring at the half-open bathroom door. The light was off inside. The water was running in the dark. I took a step back. The tap was turned off. Absolute silence. My heart was pounding so hard that I felt pain in my chest. Then slowly, the bathroom door began to open. I didn't wait to see what would come out. I threw myself against the cabin door, shoulder first. The wood creaked, but didn't give way. I tried again, and again. On the third attempt, the lock came loose with a dry snap. I stumbled out into the hallway, tripping over my own feet. My back hit the wall on the opposite side. I looked inside the room, empty. The bathroom door was closed. The light was off. No sound, as if nothing had happened. I pulled the door of 714 open forcefully and locked it. My hands were shaking so much I almost dropped the key. I ran down the service stairs. I didn't look back. When I arrived in the control room, Martin was there. His back was to me, looking at the screens as always. I stopped at the door, breathless. He didn't turn around. "You went there again," he said. It wasn't a question. I didn't answer. He sighed. Finally, he turned. He looked at me with those tired, deep-set eyes, and I saw it. The same face as in the photo. It wasn't similar. It was the same. "I told you not to go," he continued, without emotion. "Who is Augusto Mello?" My voice came out trembling. Martin remained silent. Then, slowly, he looked back at the screens. "Someone who worked here, a long time ago. In the photo, that's you." Silence. "He died, Raphael. It's been more than 20 years. My stomach churned. "How did he die?" Martin didn't answer. He just kept staring at the screens, as if I wasn't there anymore. "How did he die?" I repeated louder. "An accident," he said, his voice low. "During a night shift. Nobody saw, nobody heard. He simply disappeared. And you know this because..." He finally looked at me again, and for the first time, I saw something in his face that wasn't tiredness. It was fear. "Because I was there," he said. I couldn't answer. The words died in my throat. Martin looked away. "Go home when your shift is over, Raphael. And when you get back, don't talk about this anymore. Understand?" I stayed 2 more days on the ship. I completed my shift. I did my job. But I didn't go back to Deck 7. I checked the system. Booth 714 was still marked as occupied. The name was still there, Mr. Augusto Mello. No additional consumption was recorded. No report was made. When we landed in Miami, I resigned from my job. I didn't give an explanation. I just said I needed to go back to Brazil. Family problems. Martin signed my termination papers without saying a word. He didn't even look at me. On my last night on board, I found an envelope under the door of my accommodation. Inside, a note, handwritten, slanted, old-fashioned handwriting. Thank you for not telling. It had no signature. I burned the note. I threw the ashes into the sea. Today, almost a year later, I still wake up in the middle of the night, thinking about that cabin, that name, that identical face. Sometimes I look for news about the ship, about accidents, about disappearances. I never find anything. It's as if everything has been erased, covered up, forgotten. But I know that wasn't the case. I know there's still someone out there, or something, in that cabin. And I know the company knows. How many cabins have names of people who never boarded? How many Augusto Mellos exist, hidden in the records, occupying empty rooms? I don't know. And honestly, I don't want to know. If you work the night shift, tell me where. And if you've ever been through something similar, you already know what to do.